Cruz.
Mr. Chairman, two arguments have been proffered against Senator Kennedy's amendment. The first argument is, well, gosh, maybe there have been racist things said against other justices. I will point out objectively the venom and bigotry directed at Clarence Thomas is qualitatively different from any of the other 8 justices. This resolution gives multiple instances of elected Democrats currently in office launching racial epithets with complete impunity. It cites how Representative Benny Thompson of Mississippi, a Democrat member of Congress, called Justice Thomas a, quote, Uncle Tom. It cites how just a week ago, the current sitting Minnesota Attorney General, another Democrat, Keith Ellison, disgustingly likened Justice Thomas to a house slave, and a house slave from the film Django Unchained, a particularly vicious and loathsome character from that movie. If the chairman wishes to point to instances of any elected officials using racial epithets towards any of the other 8 justices, I will happily condemn them. I'm not aware of any. Might there be some lunatic on Twitter who said something? Sure, there are idiots out on Twitter. But these are not fringe characters. This is a senior Democrat in the House of Representatives who refuses to apologize. And this is the current Attorney General in the state of Minnesota. And so everyone should understand, look, I expect a party line vote on this. I expect all the Democrats to say no. But understand, everyone watching this will interpret that quite rightly to say, you agree these kinds of racial insults at Justice Thomas are perfectly acceptable. Justice Kennedy said he assumed the Democrats denounced these statements. I have to say, I haven't heard any members of this committee denounce what Keith Ellison said. I haven't heard anyone call on Keith Ellison to retract and apologize. The Democrat Attorney General in Minnesota, I haven't heard a word about that. The second argument given was the argument given by Senator Whitehouse, and he says, well, the part that is offensive of this is it calls on the Department of Justice to enforce the law. Just stop and repeat that to yourself again. So it is now the position of Democrats that it is unacceptable to ask the Department of Justice to enforce the law. It is an existing criminal statute, Section 1507, that makes it a federal crime to protest at the home of a justice with the purpose of intimidating them. This Department of Justice refuses to enforce that law. And I will say, with the argument being made by Democrats right now, it reveals the whole game. The reason the Biden Justice Department ignores federal law and won't actually prosecute the criminals who are trying to intimidate and threaten Supreme Court justices is because the Biden administration supports that criminal threatening. And the reason now that Judiciary Committee Democrats are being told, vote no on Senator Kennedy's bill, is because Senate Democrats on the Judiciary Committee support that violent threatening of justices. This bill is not about ethics. It's about a double standard applied to justices with whom Democrats disagree. It is designed to delegitimize the court. It is applying rules that are not applied to liberal justices like Stephen Breyer and Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Sonia Sotomayor, who have committed conduct virtually identical to that of Justice Thomas and others. But the Democrats on this committee are mad at the Supreme Court because it's issued decisions faithful to the Constitution that are inconvenient for the political agenda of Democrats. Look, we're defined by the votes we make here. If every Democrat happily votes no, understand you're telling your constituents you think it's perfectly fine to call a Supreme Court justice a house slave, and you can't muster up the courage to say that's beyond the line.
Senator Cruz, would you yield to a question?
Happily.
Would you read one more time for the record that statement about Justice Thomas and who made it?
On July 13, 2023, Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, the currently sitting Attorney General, offensively likened Justice Thomas to a house slave from the film Django Unchained. And by the way, there's a long pattern of that. On April 27, 2014, Democrat Representative Benny Thompson of Mississippi, again another sitting Democrat member of Congress, used racially charged language to characterize Justice Thomas, including calling him an Uncle Tom. I'll point out also recently, on February 14, 2023, Georgia State Senator Emmanuel Jones used similar racially charged language to characterize Justice Thomas, including by calling him an Uncle Tom figure. The choice Democrats have to make: do you think it's all right to call a justice who dares disagree with you an Uncle Tom? I think it's bigoted. But perhaps Democrats hold themselves to a different standard.